Today we are looking into synthetic data. I asked actually my followers on LinkedIn, and they said 50% that they have already created synthetic data. So we use this for development, for testing, for creation of training of ML models, and so on and so on. And today I have someone with me. I have Mario Scriminaci with me, who is the Chief Product Officer at Mostly.ai. And he is going to tell us a bit about this. I'm super excited about this because, as I said, this is a topic that I have worked on before and was quite annoying. And so they have something that really helps us. Hey, Mario.
Hi, Andreas. How are you doing?
Hi. Good. Thanks. And you?
Doing great. Thank you for having me today in the live.
Yeah, welcome. By the way, to everybody who's here, we are taking questions. So I already see Rodney here. Hello, Rodney, who posted something in the chat. Put it in the chat. Mario and I were going to answer your questions. And if it's something super long, then we're going to put this to the end, the question, but or put this at the end. But yeah, keep this in. Yeah, Mario, synthetic data. Can you tell us a bit before about you and Mostly.ai so we get started, so we set up the stage?
Yes. I will introduce myself first to give the audience kind of a little bit of perspective of what is my role and why I care so much about data. I'm a Chief Product Officer at Mostly.ai. My career has been devoted to AI, ML, and data science, especially helping enterprises to actually use AI and machine learning to solve the problems they pain. For many years, I worked in personalization, recommender systems, and I always struggle with data. Our goal was to collect as many data points as possible of our customers to create the best recommender system and personalizations. And at one point, of course, we were struggling about privacy, GDPR, CCPA, so on and so forth. So I was looking for a solution to that, and generative AI synthetic data came to my plate. I actually started using it, and then I fell in love with it. So this is why I now work for Mostly.ai, that is the market leader for generative AI synthetic data for tabular data. So today we are going to see different flavors, but let me tell you what Mostly.ai is about. If you can share the screen,
Yep.
great. So Mostly.ai now is a few years that we are the leaders for Gen AI for tabular data. And what we do is that we train generative AI models on production data of our customers. So we actually create an artificial version of your real data that looks and feels exactly like the original ones. It can be that you want to train a machine learning algorithm, or you would like to do analytics. The data will behave exactly the same without the privacy concern. So you will actually have raw data that you can actually explore and use directly. Synthetic data is not mock data. There are many alternatives out there to create data out of nothing. We actually create a generative AI model specifically for our customers for every data set. And then you can create, of course, as many flavors and as many data points as you want. Synthetic data generally, of course, is better than legacy data anonymization because it's no effort from that perspective. You have privacy out of the box without caring about, oh, how much should I anonymize? Is this field a PII or it is not? No. Everything is PII because every single data point can actually exploit the information about the original customer. So we do not need any configuration at all. We train our models that is privacy safe, and then you generate synthetic data that you can share within the organization. There are many use cases from data democratization inside organizations, AI and ML development, as I mentioned, but also, of course, is related to ethical AI, explainability, and fairness are two very important concepts. Having at your disposal raw data points, you can actually probe black box models and understanding their behaviors. We have out-of-the-box connectors, as you can see in the bottom of the slide, but this is for another day. I mean, today we're here actually to discuss how actually leveraging LLMs for another problem, that we discover being kind of very frequent for many of our customers, that is creating data out of nothing.
Mm-hmm. So data out of nothing, that sounds like...
Yeah, it's a little bit magical, but the reality is many of our customers were coming to even to our free version and asking us, I don't have any data points to start with. It's cool that you can create a generative AI model based on some production data set, but what if I don't have nothing? And this is, of course, in the last few years changed radically with the explosion of large language models that have actually very domain specific knowledge about the world, and we can actually leverage an LLM to generate data that confined to our requirements in terms of data structures, so on and so forth. So when we say create data out of nothing, in reality, we will leverage LLM knowledge that is, of course, in the model itself, and then we create data that satisfy our needs.
Mm-hmm. So that's the one step. The other thing, as you said, was people already have some data, right?
Yes.
They want to extend their data. They want to salt their data.
Yes, sometimes the problem is, imagine that I'm developing an application, right? And I have all the data that I'm collecting, but for some reasons, you, for example, need to expand the information about your customers because now you would like to actually extend your application to have some features that was not available before. Or imagine that you are collecting data, but some of this data that you are collecting, many people, for example, are not even filling the forms, right? There is missing data, right? So you imagine that you would like to, okay, now I have a course data set with basic information, but what I would like to know more about my customer, what I would like to expand the data set with some information that was not available, not collected, or simply not asked. So that is another possibility. So, or either create data out of nothing, so create mock data that are, of course, resembling real domain type of information. We are going to see some example later with a little demo, or expanding a data set with the knowledge of an LLM. So asking the LLM to expand the vision of our customers.
Yeah. And as I understand it, so you have two options of doing this with Mostly.ai, right? You have the an open source version, and you have the cloud version, right?
Yes, let me explain briefly what DataLM is.
Yeah.
If you can share back the screen, I will kind of navigate through it. DataLM is both a service and then both an open source tool that we are making available to everyone. So the idea is, okay, let's start creating data with LLMs. If you go, for example, to ChatGPT or you download one of the open source models, you will find that it's not so easy to actually extract data that is confined in a specific format in a table, for example. You would like, for example, to create data about customers, you would like to have IDs, you would like to have names, you would like to have other type of information. If you ask in ChatGPT to create such type of data, it will respond with very few rows. But then if you ask, for example, the LLM to create thousands of rows, what the LLM will do is actually will create code, Python code typically, to fake the data through some coding, right? And that, of course, has all the limitation of, okay, but what about the business rules with data? What about the domain knowledge and the expertise the LLM has? It's impossible actually to exploit it. So what we did is that we took one actually more open source LLMs. We fine-tuned the LLM with an instruction data set that you actually can find in the Hugging Face page of Mostly.ai. This is the instruction data set that you can actually use to teach an LLM, an open source LLM, to comply to generate tabular data in a tabular format. And this is the first step. So we are making available this instruction data set. Everyone can do it. And you can do it actually with the DataLM package that we offer available in open source on GitHub, and everyone can actually train any LLM actually with our instruction data set to confine to actually generate tabular data in the proper way. And this is the first step. Open source instruction data set plus the code to train it, so everyone can take any open source model and do it. For facilitation, we actually already making available two models, one that is fine-tuned on Mistral 7 billion, another one that is fine-tuned on Llama 3 8 billion parameters. So everyone can download those models already fine-tuned or decided to contribute and fine-tune other open source LLMs.
Cool. Okay.
And this is the first step that you were mentioning, the open source version. But then we are actually offering not only this, but also a free version, software, a cloud version of our DataLM. So you can actually register for free and start interacting with our DataLM service directly with our Python client. So zero effort needed if you don't want to set up your infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. So this would mean somebody who has been using tools like the Faker library or something to create some crude data could very simply change this out in their code. They have their code.
Yes, the only thing they need to do is register to DataLM to get an API key. So let me show you how easy it is to do that. You can actually just sign up. And once you sign in, you can do it with your email address or with the classical Google authentication. We are not taking, we are just keeping information about the users, no metrics, anything behind the scene. And here you can actually will have an API key that you will then you can use to initialize the Python package, DataLM, and actually use it. And I think now we can actually show how easy to generate data with DataLM in a few moments.
Yeah, in a few moments we can do that. Yeah. So for me, let's say I'm like, who is? Let's jump to the normal. Like, who is usually using this? Like, I always see this from an engineering standpoint. I have created a pipeline, and now I need to check it, and I can't get to the data because of privacy reasons. Or I'm thinking of an API. I created an API and I want to test the API. Is that something that people use this a lot, or what would you say?
Yes, that definitely is a great example of a use case for using data created with LLMs. And most of the time, you either have a very long process to access production data is taking so much time, or even you don't have the data available for yourself because it's a new service. You are developing something new, and there is simply nothing that you can use. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, people goes to Faker, for example, to create fake personas, but there is a limit to that because Faker is, of course, very good at creating details about people like age, name, emails, and this type of contacts. But the moment you need information about a specific domain, it can be troublesome because then you will need to actually create your own code to satisfy some business rules about the domain and so on and so forth. Imagine that you are creating an application for medical purposes and you would like to have diseases and then diagnoses and treatments. Of course, creating something that is coherent, okay, based on a diagnosis, I have a specific treatment. Of course, a Faker doesn't know anything about that specific domain, right? So, but the cool thing is that an LLM does. If you're actually asking an LLM in a chat, okay, I've been diagnosed with, for example, hyperglycemia, what is a possible treatment for that? The LLM will give you some option. The problem is that the LLM is a conversational agent, right? It will have a conversation with you. If you want to confine into a specific format, a table, so that you can reuse like a CSV, a Parquet file, a table in a DB, whatever you need, that might be troublesome to actually parse, force the LLM to reply to specific conditions, and so on and so forth. So this is why we create DataLM, to actually help the LLM to focus on the creation of tabular data, plus the infrastructure, plus the Python package to do it in a matter of seconds, instead of waiting a long time to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I already tried this. Like, that doesn't make sense in a chat format. It's useless. So that would be one case. The other thing that is interesting, or that interests me now, is back in the days where I was working on predictive analytics, and there was the case like, okay, let's detect is the machine when there are damages on the machine, right? And usually you would have more okay data than you would have damage data, right?
Yes.
So would this then be possible to say, okay, I'm going to use the open source resources from you to actually use that few trained data, or that few error data that I have, to train the LLM to give me that kind of a data?
That is called a kind of unbalanced. You have an unbalanced data set, right? Technically, you have a kind of an anomaly detection type of use case, whatever is maintenance or fraud for banking. That is the classical little data situation. And then you have multiple alternatives here. You can either go to our Mostly.ai synthetic data, GenAI synthetic data platform that is also good for solving this type of problems, because even with little samples, you actually can generate more data that is fraud anomaly, like a maintenance type of situation. Or you can actually ask the LLM to, okay, I would like to generate more cases like this. And the LLM will actually be able to generate more cases. The difference between the two is that in one case, the synthetic data platform will actually learn from your samples and then generate more cases. In the other, it will be your prompt engineering to actually teach the LLM how to do it, right? So both cases are okay. It depends what is your desirable outcome. If you want to train a classifier for anomaly detection and maintenance prediction, I would recommend to go with a classical flow. Trains a generative AI model with our platform, full-fledged, and then, of course, having the upsampling of the minority classes.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Very cool. We also have a question here from Sandeep.
Yes.
Let's quickly get to this, because like underlying data, I think this could be interesting. How one could rely on the LLM if the underlying data on which the model is trained changes? Will the data pipeline be tested all over again?
That is a good question, and this is also a very common theme right now, because it seems like every week we go on, a new LLM open source model, a new version is out, right? And people are saying, okay, should I, for example, now from Mistral 7 billions go to Llama 3 or going to the next model? The reality, open source LLM models will continue to pop up every week, every month, right? So this continuing change of behavior of the LLM is something that will continue to appear. This is why we are creating a framework, not just a fine-tuned model, to actually have stable results in the long run. So our instruction data set is made to actually teach the LLM to have a dialogue in a tabular format, but you can swap in out any LLM and ideally continue to have consistent results. Because of course, everything is relying on the fact that we are teaching the LLM to talk in a tabular way, but we are not teaching anything in terms of data domain. The data domain information and knowledge is in the LLM. We are not changing that, right? So this is why now we are, for example, in the cloud version, having and serving Mistral 7 billion fine-tune. Maybe tomorrow, in a few days, we'll have Llama 3 and so on and so forth. So don't be too attached on the LLM itself that you are using, because a new model and a better model will be out in a matter of a week or a month, right? So this is also why you should not have your data pipeline too dependent on what is the outcome, because even if you ask the same identical LLM twice, you will have different results, right? So the important thing is having the structure of the data as you want, having compliant, for example, to specific categorical values and so on and so forth. And that is where your data pipeline should be kind of integrated, not on the knowledge of the LLM, neither on the reply of the LLM, because that can change.
That makes sense. Should we go to the demo?
Yeah, let's see
I
how
think it would
works.
be interesting to see how it works. Yeah, now that we talked about it.
So as we mentioned, we are providing an endpoint that everyone can access. The only thing you need is an API key. Once you have an API key, you can install with just pip install DataLM, the package. Then you can import, initialize it, and then you can start using it. I would like to show a few use cases today. The first one is the one that we discussed about enriching a data set. So I will create a very simple data set, right? We have the age of the person, an information about the gender, MF, and then the country code, right? This is the country code where the person have residency or whatever. So let's imagine that now we want to expand this data set, right? For example, we would like to have the official name of the country, right? Given the country code, I would like to have the full name of the country. That is as easy as one line of code. I would like to enrich this data frame with a prompt that just say the official name of the country, right? What will happen inside is that for every single row, right, the client will actually ask the LLM, okay, this is the row that I'm giving you. So 5 years old, gender male, and country code AT or DE or AT. And then the LLM will actually understand the context that we are providing and giving an answer. And we are doing it for something that is contextually related and something that is, for example, the first name of the person that might look like is not related. But of course, we have information about the gender, right?
Mm-hmm.
So based on the gender, we would like to have male first names or female's first name. But we are not saying anything. We are just saying, okay, I would like to have a first name. I would like to have a last name that, of course, is related to the country. And then I would like to classify the age group and other information. So let me try to do that now live with you. So now we actually generating, this is just 10 rows, so it's very quick, but we are actually generating all this information, and now I have this information exploded. So for example here, first line, without us telling anything, like I'm not programming anything, I have Austria and Germany, France. So there is a one-to-one, as you can see, connection between the country code and the country. But also the name, right? Sven is Lina, Rafael, Federica. I'm Italian, so I can trust me. Federica Rossi is a perfect first name, last name for Italian people. And Vicente Garcia is for Spain. Deborah Ferreira is for Portuguese, and this is a Greek name, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So it seems magic, right? I didn't specify anything, just the columns I want, but the tool actually leveraged the information I already had to expand my data set with information that is sensical. And I didn't have to write code. I didn't have to write anything to achieve that.
Wow. You said these are just 10 rows. Like, what's the limit here? Like, as you said, this is going to go over the internet, right? If you do this on your machine,
yes,
like,
of course. There is no, let me say, limit in the size, of course. There is a limit on the throughput. We don't want our servers to be crashed. And so right now we are allowing like the expansion of 100 rows per minutes, if I'm not wrong. You can call us if you want to, or write us if you want to have more throughput. Is of course to our disposal to do that. But the limits there is just to be sure that you are not crashing the experience of other users, right? Because we don't have the OpenAI servers, and we are not asking for any penny for that, right? So it's for people that if of course, if you have to scale this up, you can call us, or you can set up your infrastructure, right? So for example, here we are doing something a little bit different, right? We are creating data sets from scratch. So there was no original data set, and I will actually create a patient data set with their condition and treatments, as we were mentioning before, right? And I'm creating 6 columns, like a UID. So here I'm specifying, I want a patient ID, and I'm specifying a regex that you can, this is a kind of the regex for a UID, but you can put anything you want. And then I'm saying, okay, I want to have an age column and between 18 and 90. And I want to have a gender column with male, females, and A. Then I want a diagnosis, a treatment, and outcome. And in this case, I'm generating 100 rows, right? So let's see how quick is that. And you see all the columns being generated one by one. And we have our results. So our 100 columns in a couple of seconds generated very quickly. I could ask for 1,000 or more. It will, of course, take 10 times more if I'm asking for 1,000. But let's see the values. So, for example, here I have neuropathic pain lidocaine patch. I'm assuming this is right. I'm not a medical expert, but this is this is like looks good, right? Type 2 diabetes is metformin. I sure this, I know my father is a diabetic person, and metformin is the treatment, and so on and so forth. And you can now use it, or you can tune it, asking for more detailed things. Okay, I now would like to add a new column, or I would like to change the condition of the prompt, and so on and so forth. Or you can simply save it in a CSV file, Parquet file, and now you can use it for your purposes and whatever you want. And those are the 100 rows that we generate. Chronic kidney disease, dialysis is the treatment, right? And I didn't specify anything, just the condition, right? Just the condition on the prompt, diagnosis, treatment, and outcome, right? And in this case, the outcome was confined into specific values: recovered, ongoing treatment, and disease. I don't want the LLM to hallucinate with 1,000 different values. No, these are the values I want, and I can specify it here. And so very, very simple, very quick, and yeah, feels like magic.
Okay. Before we go on, so there are 2 questions here. Let's quickly just switch to the other thing. So first of all, hallucinations. You just mentioned this.
Yes.
How do you see this in these cases?
I mean, LLMs are LLMs, right? In the sense that they can have constraints on not replying to specific questions. They can have like a situation where they actually don't know what you're talking about, so they will start actually generating randomly, right? This is why the instructions and the DataLM comes very handy. First, when you are expanding, right, a data set that already exists, it's like having a conversation, right, with the LLM, with the data that is already there, right? In the case we were seeing before, there was I'm expanding like the Austria, Italy country code in Austria and Italy, right, and so on and so forth. In the case, of course, we are confining the reply to the LLM to be a string, or to be a number, or to be something that is very specific. So you can actually control what are the tokens the LLM is generating by specifying the data type. Or, okay, there is an age, I would like to have a number. There is a country, I would like to have a string with a specific regex if you want, and so on and so forth. So you can actually tame, the LLM to comply to whatever you are asking for. So this is why it's important not only to pick an LLM whatsoever, but also to have a framework to cooperate with it, because otherwise it can be very difficult and tricky to not have this type of enforcing to the LLM itself.
Yeah, I think you also showed it in the one example, basically, or in those you can basically talk to the LM what are you expecting, so
Exactly.
you can.
Or for example, here for the gender, I want only 3 values. I could actually add binary or others. It's up to me to decide. And the LLM will actually be confined to those. But if I don't specify anything and just say string, the LLM will be able to reply whatever, right? And in some situation, it could be that the LLM is say, kind of replying, the gender is female instead of female, for example. And that would be very tricky to manage, to parse, to use for your data. So using DataLM, we are actually confining and optimizing the experience to just replying with the data value that you want.
Yeah. So it's basically a bit of prompt engineering. People need to actually understand.
Yes, here is prompt engineering make it easy for everyone, because instead of creating a prompt that can be complex, we are actually telling you what is the format to interact with the LLM in an effective manner, right? So instead of doing the prompt engineering to say, I would like to have the gender to be male, female, or NA, we are doing that for you, right? It's the code of the Python code or the client package that does that for you.
Yeah. Also, there was a question. Do we want to move on? You answer if you want this question now. So there was one question that I've seen. What are the limitations of you using synthetic data? Do we want to get into this now, or do we want to show?
Of course, we can get it now. This is a question from Rodney. What are the limitations? Of course, it really depends on how the synthetic data has been generated, right? Imagine that generating data with an LLM, like we are doing now. There are situations we know the LLM are biased. Are biased for several reasons. Are biased because for example, the knowledge base that we're training on was biased. If we are using Wikipedia or articles online and so on and so forth, we know that some biases are there. So if you ask an LLM for example, there is an example you ask, okay, given the gender of a person, and you ask how successful this person could be, it's more likely that male would be more successful than women. Why? Because there is a bias in the data that has been used for training the LLM. Yeah. The other, so number one, be aware LLMs are biased. You have to know, and you might actually introducing bias in whatever you are doing. If you are expanding your data set for, I don't know, some extended analysis of what if scenarios they would like to do, take that in consideration. Another limitation of using synthetic data, for example, from LLMs, is that I will not personally trust to create and train machine learning models from scratch, right? Imagine that you have no data, and now you would like to, the example you were doing, Andreas, about maintenance, right? Maintenance prediction. If I start from zero data at all, and I start creating a data set, you are learning the patterns that the LLM knows and not the reality, right? So training a machine learning models there might be risky. It would be better to actually start and creating synthetic data, maybe from an existing, even small data set, but that can contain the truth and the patterns that actually are describing the reality, and then starting from there. So limitation of synthetic data really depend on the use case. Really depends on what is your outcome. But if you want to use synthetic data for testing and to for example, have personas that you would like to use for your application and test, that is perfect, right? I would recommend everyone over Faker, because of course there is less struggle, but more knowledge, domain knowledge available. The cool thing about the LLMs is they are as knowledgeable as doctors, and knowledgeable as lawyers, and as knowledgeable as any specific domains out there. And your expertise can be complementary to the LLM and create the perfect relationship to create the data that you need.
Yeah. Yeah, and usually you don't need those because I'm thinking of the limitation of okay, how many rows you can create at once, right? Usually you're not creating millions of data points at once for developing something, for testing something. That's why I think this is okay. Let's go back to the exams. I think you had a few more, right?
Yes, but there is actually a cool question I see about the what are other fields that can be generated, like valid address for the country or the email addresses. The email address is actually pretty easy. So imagine even now we have last name and first name, and now you would like to, for example, generate an email, right, of the person, and say the email of the person. And let's try it without any regex, without anything. Let's try to see the results. My expectation is that the LLM will actually use the first name and the last name that has been generated to create the email. Let's see how it goes. And then eventually, if it's not doing that, we actually can improve the prompt. But as you can see here, those are emails, right? So James Croft as croftj@ibm.com and Maria Khan as maria@example.com and so on and so forth. So
Gmail. It's actually cool that it used the company in there.
yes, you can actually force, for example, if you don't want this to happen, and you would
cool.
like, for example, that all the email addresses to finish like @foo.com, you can actually create a regex and force the LLM to generate on a domain agnostic type of way, right?
Yeah,
So this is the example. This is how easy you can do it.
that was surprising.
In terms of valid address, I'm not sure an LLM knows all the possible addresses in every country in the world, but probably will generate something that is realistic. So, for example, let's add
Before you move on, Mario, before you move
Yes.
on, can you scroll back down?
Yes, sure.
It's very interesting because there's a large portion of Gmail, and that's actually like when I also look at my academy and the students, a large portion is just a Gmail address. So that makes total sense here.
Yes, I didn't have to specify anything, right? Because this is common knowledge. The LLM actually knows that it's more likely to have an address that finish at gmail.com that is redcross.org or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that is it is. Cool. But we could. I invite everyone to try it out. You can. This example is in the example list here, so you can actually try to expand it with what is the city, what is the zip code, and other information like this. You will know that the LLM will create things coherently.
Cool. Yeah, we have the links in the description on YouTube
Yes.
and on LinkedIn for that.
Just go in data.mostly.ai and you will have access to the DataLM kind of API portal. But here in the index, you will actually be guided how to do step by step all the things that we are showing here during the demo.
Cool.
But let's, for example, do another thing LLMs are very, very good at, that is data harmonization. So imagine that you have a data set where the gender is actually kind of not two categories, but could be male, masculine, W, the chart, the symbol, even emoji and stuff like that. And let's imagine that we are actually asking the LLM to unify it into two categories, male and female, right? So here we are actually taking whatever input that we have, and we are creating kind of a normal or harmonized version of the column. And this is another thing LLMs can be used for. And if you try to do it with ChatGPT, of course you will be able to do it, but to do it in such a structured way, maybe your data pipeline and so, that of course can be much easier to do it with DataLM.
You totally have that very often, especially when you give the user a chance to enter something. Like I'm
Exactly.
thinking about the old SAP days where they had their masks and they need to put in the stuff, and then then you have typos and you have people that write not the standard stuff, and then you could just simply use this.
But you could do it with occupation jobs. If you are creating, you are a marketer, you would like to send emails to people and you would like to segment the emails by categories of jobs. If you left the people, leave the people enter whatever they want in their job occupation, you can find anything. Even myself, CPO, Chief Product Officer, Head of Product, and so on and so forth. There are thousands of probably version of speaking about product people, and you could say, okay, I want to have engineers, product people, or whatever, and classify me for me what is the job, and it will do it because an LLM is very good at doing this type of stuff.
Yeah, awesome. I like it.
So DataLM is a tool that everyone can use for creating data out of nothing, we say, but of course you are not doing out of nothing, you are doing it out of an LLM. You can expand your data set, you can actually have a kind of a conversation within your data. And the good thing is you're always using tabular data as an interface, right? Tabular data in, like in this case, a pandas data frame in the example, and tabular data out. And it would be easy to integrate in your data pipeline. It would be easy to integrate in your code, and it will take a minute or two to set it up a new data set for your need.
Cool. I think I saw something with bias, because that is
Yes.
an example. Because I think that is something where people always, or what is a big downside of this, and we scratched this already.
Yes.
Like,
the
what do you have here?
is what we are doing in this piece of code. We are creating a data frame with 500 males, 500 females, and we are asking the LLM a very simple question. Imagine that we are asking, will this person be as successful as a manager, right? We just providing information, this person is a female, this person is a male, right? And let's ask 1,000 times, right? So this will require a little bit or more time with respect of the others, a couple of seconds more. And then let's aggregate the success metric, like let me tell yes or no, Boolean, true and false, based on gender, and see the result. So, and as you can see, there is a bias, right? In this case, the LLM that we are using, that is Mistral 7 billion, is more likely to tell you that a male is more successful as a manager than a female. And this is something that you have to be aware. When I was saying that LLMs are biased, this is the example. So this is why, I will not recommend to use synthetic data create from an LLM specifically without anything else to create machine learning algorithm or doing analysis or prediction, because you are taking with you the bias. So the ideal situation would have been to actually using the real data in the case of your customer base, and then yourself create a generative AI model on that, and then use it, right? So this is what we do in the main platform of Mostly.ai, right? This is what we are great at, and this is I would recommend just to go to app.mostly.ai if you have the type of use cases, because that is the platform that you need.
Nice. Do you want to show more, or should we?
I think that we gave the general idea. There is a last comment I see.
Let's jump to that.
Yeah. That is actually a great use case. Having a conversation with an LLM about business questions, right? Is this customer could be a premium customer? Is this person more inclined to react to marketing campaigns? So having this type of business question could be something that you can ask an LLM, right? Again, you will not have for single records like the truth, right? But if you're doing it on 5K samples, like in this case, you will have maybe an indication of what are the things that works and not in terms of business questions. Imagine that you are collecting data about your customers. They are using iPhones, they are using Android, they are of this age group, or they are living in this city or in this zip code, and so on and so forth. And then you would like actually to do marketing campaign or so, maybe you can actually create a simulation and having some of the answers. That would be good. Of course, you have to consider biases, you have to consider other things, but you can start actually having some insights even before going out there and doing a proper market research.
But this was basically a two-step process, right? This creating the data with Faker and then asking business questions. But you could with
in this
Mostly
case,
you could do it in one,
in
right?
all at once, right?
Yeah.
You will first create the columns that describe the person, and then adding a column that is what is the likelihood this person to buy my product from 1 to 5, and the LLM will actually reply.
Yeah, that's yeah, I like it. It's
But of
very
course,
nice.
remember the bias,
Yeah,
because
that's true.
that is always there. This under kind of the blanket waiting to strike.
Yeah, true. So keep that
But
in mind.
again, test data, expanding data that you already have, great use, and I love using it. I'm actually using it for my job, that is actually understanding what our customer wants and how to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there are a ton of use cases, and when I see how many people are here, I see that this is really really needed. So yeah, Mario, I think for us the only thing to say is check out the links in the description.
Yeah.
Try it out.
To call to action for me. One, go to data.mostly.ai, sign up and start using DataLM, or go to our Mostly.ai GitHub repo and help us to train more LLM models and so on and so forth. We, of course, recommend everyone to sign up and try it, but if you want also to contribute, everything is released open source. If you have any questions, contact us. We are ready to get back to you. And yeah, enjoy.
Yeah, enjoy, guys. Thanks for being here, Mario. Thanks for
Thank you,
giving us
Andreas, for
this
having me.
awesome insight here. I'm also going to try this out. Bye.